This is Skyline Plaza. Building A4 was part of one of the largest residential developments ever planned for Northern Virginia. A 26-story tower worth $24 million, and every one of its 468 units was already sold. On March 2nd, 1973, the top half of it collapsed.
4 blocks away, he radioed for a second alarm. 2 blocks away, he radioed for 5 ambulances, and later said it was like a bad dream.
"14 construction workers never went home. The buyers waited 4 more years for their keys. No one was ever convicted. How does a building engineer to hit a fixed deadline end up too weak to hold its own weight? What turns a $24 million building with every unit already sold into $12.5 million in wreckage overnight? Someone was charged criminally for this. Why did that go nowhere? Why couldn't the families of the dead take anyone to court? And how does a company already responsible for one fatal collapse walk away with no consequences, then build the exact same way again? The answers start with the ground this tower was built on. By the late 1960s, the Washington suburbs were in the middle of a construction boom unlike anything the region had seen before. The site was a small former airfield in Fairfax County, Virginia, at the intersection of Route 7 and Seminary Road. Charles E. Smith Company bought the land and announced a plan audacious even for the era. 8 residential towers, 6 office buildings, a hotel, a shopping center, enough units for 30,000 residents, close to the population of a small American town. By 1973, 2 of the towers were already built and occupied, and Smith was already one of the largest private developers in the region, operating with the confidence of a company that had never failed to deliver and would later go public as a real estate investment trust trading on the New York Stock Exchange. The third building, A4, alone was going up at a pace of 1 new concrete floor every 3 to 4 days, fast enough to hit an August opening with 468 sold units waiting. One workman on the site told a reporter the crews were pulling supports out too fast, trying to hustle the job. That was the plan. Here's what actually happened. Building A4 was 26 stories of reinforced concrete, built with a flat plate slab system. Each floor is a flat slab of concrete resting directly on columns, no beams, no girders. It is cheap and it is fast, and that speed was the entire point on a fixed August deadline. But concrete does not reach its design strength the moment it is poured. It cures slowly over weeks. Anyone who has ever poured a driveway knows not to drive on it the next day. Now picture that same wet concrete not holding up a car, but holding up 22 more floors of an apartment tower above it. Builders use temporary wooden supports called shoring to carry that load until the concrete can carry itself. The structural engineering firm on the project, Heinzman Clifton and Kendro, had drawings that were explicit. 2 full stories of shoring under every new pour, plus 1 more story of reshoring while the concrete cured, meaning 3 floors below any active pour should have been carrying the load at all times. Those drawings were stamped sealed and on file with Fairfax County. The American Concrete Institute required temporary shoring to remain in place for at least 10 days on concrete floors spanning more than 20 feet between columns. Those numbers were not suggestions. This exact case is still taught in engineering schools today, not because the design was flawed, but because the crew never followed it. Then the crews got ahead of schedule. By the afternoon of March 2nd, 1973, roughly 150 construction workers were spread across the tower as the 24th floor slab was being poured. 2 climbing cranes ran inside the building. On the 22nd floor, a crew was stripping the wooden forms from the slab poured days earlier. The concrete above them on the 23rd floor was 4 days old. The standard required 10. Engineers later estimated its actual strength at 1,200 pounds per square inch. The design called for 3,000, less than half the strength it needed.
Today, about 2:30 last Friday afternoon, when the call came out over the Fairfax County Fire radio, a building collapse.
Everything just started falling out of the middle. And then all these guys start running for the sides. On top of this platform was 3 decks up.
At 2:30 p.m., it failed in what engineers call a punching shear, the columns punching upward through the slab. The 23rd floor dropped onto the 22nd, the 22nd dropped onto the 21st, and the 21st onto the 20th. The entire upper section came down in 20 seconds, tearing a 60-foot gap through the middle of the tower. From the street, one building now looked like two with open sky in between. Witnesses 4 blocks away said it sounded like a plane crashing at nearby National Airport. The first theory among survivors was that a crane had toppled and taken the tower with it. It hadn't. A worker on the 2nd floor, William Van Dyke, was installing safety rails when he heard the foreman's radio squawk, felt the rumbling, and ran with 2 co-workers.
And I looked around and I was almost the last one out. The stripper was in there. I seen him get it, but
He made it out. 14 of his co-workers higher up did not. By that evening, floodlights lit the site as crews from Fairfax County, Arlington County, and Alexandria worked through the night with jackhammers and rescue dogs, pulling survivors and bodies out of 40 feet of concrete and twisted rebar. The next morning, the Washington Post's front page ran a single headline: 5 dead, 12 missing in collapse of high-rise. Then the investigation started asking who knew. Within hours of the collapse, inspectors from OSHA, an agency less than 2 years old at the time, were walking through the rubble. Investigators Edgar Leyendecker and S. George Fatal ran a structural analysis. Their federal report would not be published for 4 more years. Federal investigators from the National Bureau of Standards found no record that anyone had tested the 23rd floor concrete before pulling the wood out from under it. A separate review commissioned by Fairfax County reached the same conclusion. 3 independent investigations, same answer. Prosecutors indicted Roger Gilbert Arnold, the concrete subcontractor's vice president, on manslaughter charges for 3 of the men who died: Danny Ray White Clemens, Riley Holcomb, and Daniel Wilhite. He was the senior official on site the day the shoring came down early. The maximum sentence was 5 years. The case ended without a conviction. Miller & Long, the company, paid $300 for the specific shoring violation and $13,000 in total federal penalties. A judge ruled the developer Charles E. Smith Company could not be held criminally responsible for its subcontractors' actions. The workers who survived hit a wall too. Most people assume this happened inside Washington, D.C. It didn't. Bailey's Crossroads sits in Fairfax County, Virginia, 6 miles from the White House, but a different set of laws entirely. The architect and structural engineer whose stamped drawings had explicitly required the shoring the crews removed were sued in civil court and held responsible anyway. The workers never got that chance. Virginia's workers' compensation statute barred employees from suing their employer or any closely related company. It paid medical bills and a fraction of lost wages. It did not pay punitive damages, and it did not let widows put the company that killed their husbands on a witness stand. Survivors with broken backs and crushed limbs received the same fixed payout as everyone else. One of the family's attorneys told reporters that if the collapse had happened 6 miles east inside the district or just north in Maryland, his clients could have pursued real damages. 6 miles decided who got justice and who got a check for burial expenses. And this was not the first time. 5 years earlier, in June of 1968, 2 floors caved in at a Charles E. Smith office tower in Crystal City. 3 men died, 29 were injured. Investigators blamed the same cause: wooden shoring too weak to hold freshly poured concrete. The company paid a small fine and kept building. Then Skyline Plaza happened. 4 times the body count, same failure, same company. Everyone wondered how that was even possible too. Charles E. Smith Company was never barred from building in the region again. It went on to become one of the largest real estate developers in Washington, D.C. Fairfax County did halt construction at the Skyline site for 16 months. When work resumed in 1974, it came with strict inspection protocols and federal oversight watching every pore. The tower opened in 1977, 4 years late. the 468 buyers who had picked their floor plans back in 1972 finally got their keys. 5 years after Skyline Plaza, a cooling tower under construction at the Pleasance Power Station in Willow Island, West Virginia, collapsed the same way. Premature removal of supports, concrete that wasn't strong enough yet. 51 workers died. It remains the deadliest construction accident in American history. Federal prosecutors convened a grand jury for that one too. Nobody was charged there either. Today, units in that same rebuilt Skyline building resell for around $350,000 each. Building codes changed after Skyline Plaza. Continuous reinforcing steel through every slab and column joint is required by law now, specifically because of this collapse. The concrete got fixed. It all traces back to one decision. $300 for 14 men. That was the whole fine. This wasn't a rogue subcontractor cutting corners once. It was a system that let the same company fail twice in 5 years and rewarded it with more contracts, more towers, more scale. 53 years later, nobody who made that decision is being asked to justify it. Was the deadline the real problem, or just the excuse? The same shoring shortcuts are still legal to repeat today. You just don't know which building it's happening in right now. On April 8, 2026, a parking garage under construction for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia collapsed the same way a precast concrete panel failed during installation and brought down all 7 stories. 3 iron workers, Stepan Shevchuk, Matthew Kane and Mark Scott Jr., never came home. And it's not the only warning sign right now. On July 7, 2026, at 235 East 42nd Street in Midtown Manhattan, structural beams began to buckle on the 21st floor of a 37-story tower being converted into 1,600 apartments, which developers call the largest office-to-residential conversion in New York City history. Emergency crews evacuated several city blocks, including a nearby hotel and school. The developer Metroloft had already been cited 7 times in the past year, including fines for falling glass and a falling metal panel totaling more than $32,000, and a worker had been permanently injured months earlier when wood scaffolding gave way beneath him. Every one of those was a warning. Nobody stopped the project. Crews are shoring the building floor by floor right now. You just don't know which one is next. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.